One of the main questions that I get about Facebook ads is how do I test and scale? What is the best structure? Do you test in ABO? Do you test in CBO? Do you scale in bid cap, in cost cap? So in this video, I want to answer this question and show you guys how in our agency we test and scale campaign. And just for your reference, we spend millions in paid ads specifically on Meta every month. So we have tested a lot of different testing and scaling structure, and we noticed that there are a couple of differences that you need to understand before actually taking a decision. For instance, let's say you want to waste more budget into testing, then you need to go for a specific setup, while if you want to optimize the overall efficiency and make sure that you only scale what works without wasting too much budget into testing, then there is another setup that might be work best for you. So in this video, I will be showing you exactly what are those different setups and how you can actually implement them based on your specific brand. So without further ado, let me jump straight on my screen. Again, in this video, I will be talking about how we test and scale Facebook ads in 2026 and how we get the results that you see right here. So all these results that you guys are seeing right now are basically results that have been generated using this structure that you will see in this video. And as you can see, we have different level of spending, and depending on different level of spending and different type of businesses, different type of e-commerce brands, usually we need to apply different type of strategies. And that also depends mainly on the budget as well. So before actually going into the details, I want to recap a little bit on what are the two different broad options that you have. So the first option is to have one testing campaign and then another separate scaling campaign, and this is the usual process, something that a lot of media buyers have been doing in the past years. The classic ABO testing campaign, testing different ad sets, and then scale into a CBO setup. But recently, after Meta Andromeda, there has been a new type of strategy that is working very, very well right now for our clients, which is the test and scale in the same campaign. It could be a simple one campaign, one ad set CBO test and scale campaign, and it could be also a single CBO multi-ad set test and scale campaign, and I will go into the details later. Now, before we actually dive into the details, I want to explain what are the reasons why you want to go for one approach or the other. So the first approach is testing one campaign and scale in campaign number two, which is usually the two different campaign. Basically, it can be ABO and CBO. This really depends. But then let's say you have two different campaigns, one for testing and one for scaling. Something you need to understand is that when you have different ad sets, you're gonna have one issue, which is the audience overlapping across your campaigns or ad set, and this technically is going to increase your CPMs. That's why Meta recently, especially after Andromeda, is pushing you more to consolidate more ad sets, so to consolidate all your ads inside fewer ad sets rather than having more ad sets and less ads. And that's because Meta with Andromeda now knows exactly who to target with your creatives, since the learning happens at the actual creative level, so the ad level, and then all the learning gets pushed to the ad set level that consolidate all the learning. What Meta does is use all this learning to maximize the efficiency of the overall ad set and the overall campaign, because at the end of the day, what you care is not having a high return on spend or good performance at the ad set level, but you want to have good performance or good ROAS technically at the overall ad account level, because that's what actually matters at the end of the day, right? Another issue here is that when you separate by campaigns and different ad sets, you have some learning spreads across different ad sets and campaigns. But the good thing about this is that you have more flexibility. So if you want to test some specific angles, or if you want to test some specific landing pages, you can simply just do this by having single ad set that test specific variables. So you technically have more flexibility here. Then on the other option here, you have the test in campaign number one and scale in the same campaign. So the good thing about this is that you have more data consolidation, and so you can technically leverage more precise targeting and have a more stable performance, because if you consolidate all your learning inside one single ad set, then you have more chances that this ad set can actually improve the targeting within all the people that you're targeting with the ads inside the actual ad set, because there are more data that are consolidated within the ad set level. And remember that when you choose the audience, you choose it at the ad set level, and so this is where the actual learning of all the ads are happening. And so the ad set level determines the audience you're going to target together with the creatives that you have inside. So the more creatives you have inside, the more data points you have inside the ad set that can be leveraged to optimize the performance of all the ads within the actual ad set. Now, another thing here is that there is an issue, which is basically that the budget might go to creative with a better experience, because we need to remember that Meta is a business, and of course they want to sell you the ads, because you need to pay the ads to actually get performance. So Meta wants to sell you performance, but at the same time, it needs to offer people on the platform a very good experience. Otherwise, people are not going to stay on the platform anymore. And so what is going to happen is that there will be only actual media buyers, so people that wants to buy the ads, but not people on the platform, because maybe like the ads on the platform start being very bad, and so like it's not going to be a good experience. People will leave the platform, and so there are no more impressions that Meta can sell to the advertiser. That's why Meta always balance between performance and experience of the ad, user experience, and which usually is seen by Meta by actual engagement. And that's one very important metric that actually no one is taking care about nowadays, which is the engagement rate ranking, which is a metric that you can get if you do custom column and then you go to the engagement rate ranking. You just click that, you will see inside the column, inside the ads manager. And this is very important because it tells you exactly how is the engagement ranking of that specific ad. And what you want to do, ideally, you want to have an ad that has an engagement ranking which is average or above average, because that means that Meta is going to favorite a specific creative and is going to distribute that creative to more audience, and is technically going to reduce also your CPM. And you know very well that if the CPM is low, then technically also your CPC can be lower, and ideally also the return on ad spend. It really depends then about the conversion rate. But overall, by offering a better experience in your ad, it's definitely going to help Meta and Meta AI to help you distribute the ads in a much better way. That's basically the issue with this campaign, is that if you have two different ads and then one is offering a slightly better experience than, for instance, the ad number one, then the ad number two is going to get more of the spend, but then probably the ad number two is giving you a 2x ROAS, while the ad number one can give you like a 4 or 5x return on the ad spend, maybe even with a lower frequency. But then since the engagement is much better on the ad number two, Meta is going to push the ad number two. That's why this second setup is not always the best, and it really depends on how willing you are to actually test things and force Meta to spend budget to test specific variables or angle that you're testing. But something important here to mention is also the management of the different type of campaigns. The more you increase the budget on Meta, the higher the complexity will be to manage all your ads. And then this is actually the graph of how things will happen usually. What is happening here is that the more you increase the budget, the more it's going to be difficult and complex to manage an ABO setup, because you're going to have a lot of different ad sets at one point running at the same time. So maybe like one campaign with 20, 30, 40, 50 ad sets that you have to manage and you have to check every day. And then when you do an edit, technically you should go there and then remember yourself, so note down all the edits, and then, you know, like go back after 7 days or like a couple of days to see how things went after you made some specific changes. So it's more difficult to manage. On the other side, you have a CBO setup which is much more optimized. That means that when you increase the budget, the complexity increase, but not that much, because you still need to monitor, of course, more ad set or more ads overall, but Meta is going to distribute the budget for yourself. And technically, this that you see here in red is basically the additional time that you can save on managing the actual ad and invest this time into producing actual creative, or like think overall about the creatives, angle, landing page, and how to actually make sure that the ads are converting. Because as you probably know, the main reason why ads works well is usually because of the creatives and the landing page. At the constructor, it's still very important in my opinion, because we literally have seen different amazing change in performance after we change specific ad account setup and structure in different brands. So this is actually still very important, but it's about the time that you save, you as a brand owner or you as a media buyer, to actually spend more time on what actually is driving the most impact within the business. So let's go now to the most common question, which is ABO or CBO? Well, this basically depends on your business offer, budget, and SKUs. And let's have a look at the details. I kind of made this graph here, so it's kind of easy to understand. Let's start with the main question. Are you willing to waste budget on testing? So are you comfortable losing money while testing? And the reason why I'm saying this is because different setup allows you to do different things, right? So let's say your answer is yes. So you are willing to waste budget on testing because you don't care, because it's fine for you to waste budget as long as you learn something, okay? And so that's fine for you. If the answer is yes in this case, you can go to an IBO setup. So you launch an ad set. In each single ad set, you can treat an ad set as like a mix of persona, concept, and angle. And then you launch the batch all together into different ad set. You keep 4 to 6 creatives ads in each single ad set. And this is how you test things. And then when you see something is working, you scale the IBO ad set, and then you scale also into another separate campaign. You can duplicate the best performing ads into a separate campaign in CBO setup, multiple ad set or single ad set with I usually prefer a single ad set in this case, using the post ID, so you basically keep the engagement. But there are some people that they don't want to waste money on testing because probably they don't have much budget. So if you're spending like 200, 300, 500 per day, even like 1 or 2K per day, technically you don't want to, and you don't want to waste a lot of budget to testing because you want to maximize the efficiency of the budget that you're spending, then what you can do is try to leverage more Meta in this case, and so the CBO setup. So in this case, what you want to do, you want to keep testing, but you want to kind of leverage the Meta forecasting to understand what works and what doesn't, and trust Meta to pick directly the best performing creatives without even spending any budget into it, because this is what Meta does every time you launch an ad into a CBO. That's why there are some ads that get the spend and others that don't get the spend, because Meta takes every ad that you launch and run an analysis of this ad using the AI and understand what is the forecast in terms of performance that ad can bring based on existing data, based on your ad account existing data, based on the target audience, and based on all these other things combined together. But Meta is, of course, not always right. And the reason behind this is because are you open also to collect biased learning by Meta to make future ad decisions? What does it mean is that when you run a CBO setup, then Meta start pushing the ad set that contains the creatives that have better engagement. And so are you willing to play by Meta rules? So are you willing to let Meta pick the best creatives that Meta likes and that possibly also can scale, but technically leaving some more performance on the table? Because what you can do, if you test things manually, you can learn more while actually leaving things to Meta. And so in this case, so if the answer is yes, so if you're willing to let Meta choose for you and you want to trust Meta in this case because you want to optimize the budget, then you want to a CBO. And why I'm saying optimize the budget, the testing budget, because usually if you run two different type of campaign. You run an ABO setup and you run a CBO setup. In the ABO setup, you launch like 5 different ad set and then you put like 5 different ads in each. If you run the same setup but as a CBO, Meta already forecast what are the best performing ad set and the best performing ads within each single ad set before even actually spending money into them. And so it starts automatically allocating more budget into those creatives and then slowly optimize based on the data points that Meta collects after spending the budget in the specific creatives and ad set. That's why the CBO already starts performing well from the beginning without you need to learn anything, because Meta is doing the job in advance for you. And so I start optimizing the campaign from day one. And so what can happen is that after 7 days, if you leave everything as they are, the CBO campaign is going to have a much higher ROAS than the ABO campaign. But what's the difference in here is that after 7 days, there might be some ad sets here in the CBO setup that did not get any spend, while there are the same ads in the ABO setup will get the spend. And in this case, there are like 2 different scenarios. Scenario number 1 is that the CBO setup did not spend all the budget or some of the budget, or did not spend anything at all into some ads because Meta thought that they were no good, or because the engagement on the ads wasn't good. So the overall experience, it wasn't good. And you can assume in this case, if you run this setup, that those creatives are not working well. So the ads that don't get the spend means that they don't work well. On the other side, if you run an ABO setup, then you might notice sometimes that the ads that didn't get spent on the CBO actually were performing good. And the reason why this happens sometimes is because you're forcing Meta to spend on creatives that don't necessarily give the best experience. So Meta might give you a little bit higher CPM, but they convert very well. And so the increase in CPM in this case is balanced by an increase in conversion rate because the ads are converting better. And so at the end of the day, you have found some ads that you can technically scale. And that's the reason why you need to decide which is the best option for you. Now, let me actually explain. So when we go in an ABO setup, you basically want to take more control. But this might lead to spending your ad budget on ad creatives that don't work. You might be spending around 200, 300 pounds, dollars, whatever, depending on how statistically significant you want each test to be. So It also usually depends on the CPM, meaning that if you have a CPM of 1,000 is nearly impossible, but let's say you have a CPM of like $100 and then you have another CPM of $20, then you need a different type of budget, because you need more budget to collect the same amount of impressions. In the case of the CPM is 100 compared to the 20 CPM. And so you might end up after 1 week spending budget on ads that didn't work. But that thing for you might be a learning and be like, okay, that angle didn't work. But then there's also another issue here, is that did you actually test the angle properly? So did you test the angle with enough creatives? Did you test it with statics and videos? Did you only test with 3 statics? And so you might take decisions that are not correct, because you might come to the conclusion that, okay, this angle is not working, but did you test enough creatives? Did you test enough variation of creatives? Did you test different formats? If you do, then in this case, you can be like, okay, this angle is actually not working. And in the CBO setup instead, it's much more easier and straightforward, because when you use a CBO, Meta tends to spend the budget only on potential winning creatives. So you have different ad sets, and Meta spend most of the budget into 1 or 2 ad sets, while the others usually don't get any spent. Now, something here important to mention is that I usually see is that if this ad set number 1 has a lower CPM, because probably there is a better engagement or there is a better experience on the ad or whatever, and then this ad number 5, the ad set number 5 is probably is like a video, for instance, that has a higher CPM, Meta tend not to spend budget into this. But then something that we notice is that if we duplicate the same campaign and relaunch it from scratch while keeping the initial campaign active, in the new campaign, things changes. And so Meta instead spend on for instance, on the ad set number 4 or 5. And so this actually put me in a situation of asking myself, like, can I actually trust always the CBO setup or not? And my conclusion of this is that you basically need to test things and then see what works best for you. Because this thing actually happened very recently for us. We were running a CBO setup with 1 ad set and a lot of different creatives, and things were doing well. We added more creatives and things started to decline. Then we duplicated we turned off the CBO, duplicated with the same creatives, but we only picked the top 10 creatives into 1 ad set, 1 campaign, 1 ad set, 10 creatives, using the existing winning creative inside the old CBO, and things actually went very well. So just to recap, on the ABO setup, you have a little bit more control compared to what you have into the CBO. Now, the thing is that you basically have 2 options here. Option number 1, you test a concept in a CBO. It doesn't get the spend. Meta knows based on forecasting that concept is going to work. Option number 2, you have trust issue with Meta, and so you want to force spend into ABO. 90% of the times, Meta is always right though, so you end up wasting the budget to spend to an ABO that could have spent towards an existing winning ad set, for instance, and overall optimize the testing campaign. And this goes back to a main question, which is, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to optimize the testing process and make it profitable, or are you okay to waste money on the testing? So at this point, what we did, we started to identify different type of testing and scaling setup that we can summarize into these 4. And this is basically what is working right now for us, different options based on different ad accounts that we work on. So unfortunately, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, and we have different structure for the different clients, and these are the most common. So the first one is ABO testing campaign and the CBO 1 ad set scaling. In this campaign here, the number 1, we test each different concept, personas, and angle within a single ad set inside the testing campaign, and then we duplicate the winning ad using the post ID inside a single ad set CBO campaign, all optimized by highest volume, lowest cost. And this entire setup, what we notice is that this entire setup works, either you do it all in highest volume, lowest cost bidding, so auto bidding, or you do it all in manual bidding, so cost cap and bid cap. Because if you mix things, usually things aren't really working very well. And another idea could be like to split ad account, and when in one ad account you do only by highest volume, lowest cost, and then there is another ad account where you do basically only cost cap for the same brand. But this is usually when you spend like a lot of money, so and things get a bit complicated over there. And then you have the second option, which is one campaign, one ad set, test and scale campaign. And this works very well, especially for the brands that are not spending a lot of money, like up to 1-2K per day. And this works very well even if you're spending like 1 or 2K per day in a single product. Because what you can do, you can duplicate and create a single campaign for each product that works as a test and scale campaign. One campaign, one ad set, and you put all the creative inside for each single product, and then you scale that campaign and you add more creative, you turn off creatives within there, and you add more creative within that single ad set. Now, the issue here is that it might be go and turn off creatives that have a low ROAS, but those creatives are bringing you incrementality. So it's very important that you read the data properly. And for this reason, I highly recommend you to check my other videos on my YouTube channel, because I explain this concept in details and showing you how to actually analyze and scale ads and how to take decisions. Then there is another option, which is one campaign, multi-ad set CBO, which is basically the same as campaign number one. The only difference is that each single test goes into a single ad set inside the main CBO setup. So you can have different ad set, and then the CBO is going to distribute all the spend. And then number 4 is having one campaign, multiple ad set for testing, so which is basically the same as number 3 in this case, but you have another campaign on top, which is a single campaign, single ad set scaling campaign that contain all the winning ads using the post AD, because you want to have more control over the budget and then just push an extra spend towards those winning creatives. And this is basically how you want to do things. Now, this is visually how it looks like, which is the first setup, the ABO testing and scaling. So as I mentioned before, ABO test, different ad set, and then you have different ads, maximum 6 usually within each single ad set in this case. Then you have the CBO scaling, one ad set, all winning ads inside. The second option is one campaign, one ad set, test and scale. So one single campaign, one single ad set, all created inside. Usually here we put like 50, 60 different creatives. Of course, the budget need to match, because you cannot have a campaign with like 20 per day budget and 50 different creatives. You can use 50 different creatives if you have like a budget of 1K, 2K per day. That works. Then it's another different setup, which is this one, sorry. One campaign, multiple ads CBO, and you can scale the budget directly here. You launch each single creative batch as an ad set, but in this case, I suggest to actually split the ad set by angle and concept and everything, because since the learning happens within the creative level, but then it gets pushed to the ad set level, that determine how these ads get pushed. And so you want to consolidate the learning at the ad set level and give Meta more clarity about your audience for the creatives that you use. And this is how you actually can try to push things. But what we notice is that right now, so with Andromeda, this isn't really the case anymore for some cases. So basically, even if you mix different personas and angle inside the same ad set, things most of the time even works very well. That's why this setup here, which is one campaign, one ad set, works very well, even if in the single ad set we put different personas, different angles and everything. And then we have this other setup here, which is one campaign, multiple ad set for testing, and one campaign, one ad set for scaling, which is basically the same setup as this one. The only difference is that you have another campaign on top with a single ad set, all the winning ads with post ID. An additional thing to mention is that this campaign here specifically can be managed as in highest volume or in cost cap or bid cap, as I mentioned before. So you can basically choose the one that you best prefer, based also on the actual risks that you want to put into it. Usually when you spend a lot of money into ads, you want to have more cost control, ideally, and that's where you want to have all the cost cap or bid cap bidding for this specific setup. And yeah, guys, that's basically it. I hope you find it helpful, even though I probably couldn't give you a precise answer, but that's exactly the case, because I want you guys to start thinking with your mind actually, and understand that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, and you cannot trust everyone online that tells you this is the best setup, or this is the best setup, because that's the best setup for their business. Usually brand owner, they might have 3, 4, 5 different brands, but we as an agency, we have worked with 70 different brands, so we've seen basically everything. We have tested a lot of different things, so I can tell you for sure that there are different setups that work for different type of businesses, for different level of spend, and you need to understand what works specifically for you. Of course, if you need help, I always leave the link in the description of the video, so you can basically reach out and technically see if we can actually work together with my agency Scale It. And yes, that's basically it for this video. If you have any question, feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to reply to everyone as usual. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.